Shalom and welcome to another episode in our ongoing series called Faith Journeys with God in the Land. Today I'm at the high place at Tel Dan in northern Israel. We're here at the sacrificial area or cultic area at Tel Dan. And what we're going to do is walk into this area where there's good evidence to believe that there was a large sacrificial altar here. And that's based on the size of the foundation that we see there right behind me. The sacrificial altar and this area where cultic practice took place was initiated by King Jeroboam. We read about this in 1 Kings chapter 12. Maybe these steps here were added later by a king like Ahab, who had his capital of the northern kingdom elsewhere, but he too continued this pattern of disobedience. But what's really striking to me about this is that this cultic area established by Jeroboam apparently was continued. In fact, here you can see the steps that led up to the high place. And on the high place, as 1 Kings 12 tells us, was placed a golden calf. Now one was placed here and another at Bethel, about 10 miles to the north of Jerusalem. Incidentally, we're looking north right now into Lebanon, actually. But this cultic area was an abomination to God. In fact, one king after another practiced this unkosher ritual, sacrificing animals. The priestly chamber was over to my left, and what happened here is, as a result of this idolatry, if you will, God brought the northern kingdom to an end. Kings like Tiglath-Pileser in 734 and later on Sargon II would bring a total end to the northern kingdom in 722. Look at those steps. These are the very steps used by people in the Old Testament in the northern kingdom as they went and honored the golden calf established by Jeroboam, as we read about in 1 Kings 12. But there, I believe, was a precedent here in terms of false worship practices. And the precedent was established earlier by the Danites, who repositioned here. Now, they lived in the Tel Aviv area near the airport today, but they sent some spies to this city that was called Laish at the time. And eventually 600 of them, the Danites, come and they take the city and they establish a cultic ritual themselves. On their way, they pick up a priest from the hill country of Ephraim and ephods, and there's already something unkosher going on in terms of ritual practice by the Danites. So could it be that these Danites simply led the way, if you will, to the false worship practices of Jeroboam, who then would lead the way for the Israelites, who would come as far as Dan, as the text tells us, to sacrifice to God? So maybe the life lesson that we can learn here as we walk around this sacrificial altar would be this, and it's one that I really think about a lot, because when I look at my walk of faith, there are patterns of disobedience that can sort of quietly sneak up on me, that can really lead me to more deeper and more serious issues. Like, for instance, if we think of something that's not honoring to God, or we think no one's watching, you know how that goes. It's just a little thing, God, don't worry about it, but then that little thing becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden we're finding ourselves distracted from our walk of faith with God. These patterns of disobedience can actually develop into serious issues that divert us from honoring God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. So here at the high place, I'm reminded of the importance to keep my heart in check, to keep my uh, level of disobedience at check. And of course, I can't do that on my own, nor can you. This is where we are dependent upon God's Spirit in our walk of faith to help us sort of divert away these patterns of disobedience, even though they may start as small and innocent as they may be, but they can lead to more serious things that ultimately dishonor God. So look at these steps of the high place leading up to the area where the golden calf was placed. I hope that our steps will lead us not to disobedience, but to a pattern of obedience as we strive to be the living sacrifice. You know, Paul talks about this in Romans chapter 12 when he invites us to be a living sacrifice. And that's what God desires most of us, most of all of us, so that we can lay ourselves on the altar and be used of God as pure vessels, as people who have our hearts in check, people who have our patterns in check, if you will, so that in all that we do and say would glorify Christ. So how's your faith walk going? Are you keeping those patterns in check? I hope you are. And be encouraged, because God gives us the strength through His Spirit to do just that. So be encouraged, and until next time, shalom.